I want to say hello and thank you all for joining us today. I am Laura Pusey and I'm the founder of FACFO, and I am joined today by my dear friend, companion and sister, Aama Sade from Tree Circle Ceremonies. Aama, thank you so much for joining me today. We've just been talking about the fact that we've been in each other's company for over a year now, as FACFO develops and gets its feet and gets up and running. And I just want to thank you so much for all that you've contributed to FACFO thus far. I look forward to our future, definitely. Would you be able to tell us a bit about yourself, what you do and who you are, please?
Oh, well, first I want to just raise you up, Laura. I really want to raise up your energy. You're a visionary, raise up for kind of just adopting me in like a sister, true sister, gone out of your way as a friend, and just your, vision and determination with FACFO. It's inspiring, so I just want to raise up your ancestors, that guide you and protect you, and so just giving thanks.
Thank you.
For our journey that we've been on, and for all the ancestors that guide this journey, really. So just wanted to kind of acknowledge that, and talking about ancestors, talking about my mum, because without my mum, I wouldn't even be on this journey of being a celebrant.
Okay, so how did it start for you? What happened?
Well, how did it start? I'll tell you how it started. Ceremonies always fascinated me.
Right, yeah.
It always has fascinated me. Whenever I go anywhere, I'm always interested in the libation. I'm always interested. There used to be an event called African Remembrance Day. Well, they still have it actually, but back in the day when we used to go there, they'd have an annual ceremony for our ancestors to be remembered. And that really was a powerful thing for me. It was usually outdoors.
Right.
In parks or in settings where, we'd go to Liverpool Slavery Museum, we just tour around the country, but it was mainly in London. And I used to go there every year as a drummer, and just ceremonial drummers, just to be in the space, and drum and raise up a vibration. So that was a space where I kind of learned to kind of that whole ceremony vibe and what it means, and was kind of schooled. So I saw a lot of people in that arena who inspired me for ceremony. And so then I started working out in the community in ceremonial ways, whether it was 9 nights, whether it was a raising up or a opening or whatever it was, I'd be there. And then I remember going to a funeral reception, and this elder, who usually does libations, he was talking and socializing, and I remember sort of very hesitantly going up to him and saying, excuse me, but I think people are ready to eat, so would you like to do libation now?
Okay.
And he just turned to me, looked at me and said, you need the practice, you do it.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So what can I say? I can't say no. I can't say no, because an elder has just asked me to do something. So that was my first initiation, if you like, big initiation in actually being in the role of doing the ceremony, because I didn't know what to say, I didn't know what to do, but I can't say I didn't know what to say and do, because I've been to so many.
Yes.
So, do you know what I mean? So it was really like, what? And I suppose it's about, authority.
Very much.
The authority to do this. Do I, have I been trained or educated or whatever it is, when actually, in fact, it's all about what is within, So I did it. I can't even remember what I said, to be quite honest. It's not, I can't even remember what I said. So, but that would always stick in my mind, because at the end of the day, what he did was show me that, we have this within us, and if you have it within us, then that already is your authority to be able to do it. And I got that vibe as well from Maladoma and Sobonfu Sommeil. I don't know if you've read the book.
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Walking in the Spirit, right? So
Yes.
it was liberating for me, in terms of the next stage of, well, what do you do and how do you do it?
Yeah.
And I think as a child in the diaspora, with my parents coming here in the Windrush, I think I call us displaced Africans in the diaspora. Where are our elders? Where was our village? Our parents, weren't dealing with ceremony in that way.
Yeah.
Because they were too busy getting on and surviving in the hostile environment. So, for me, it was a lonely journey for a long time, just in terms of where do I go? Who do I do? But it was an adventurous journey, because it then meant I spoke to lots of different people in lots of different cultures. So I came through the church with my family.
Okay.
And then from the church, I came into Rastafari, and stayed with Rastafari for many years. I always say Rastafari saved my life, because I don't know where I would have ended up, without that grounding.
Right.
And without the rituals. Rastafari has a lot of rituals within it. Without the reasoning, so you really go into self. And word, sound, and power, I think is the basis of Rastafari. The word is the sound, is the power. So your utterance, so they taught me a lot about integrity, about going to the core, the essence, the root of the thing, whatever it is you're doing. Go to the root of it, because the root is where it grows. So you can pick a weed from the top and you can keep picking it. But if you dig out the root, then you've got the whole thing, and likewise, if you want it to grow, you've got the roots, it will grow.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So, so from Rastafari, then into Osero Set Society.
Okay.
And there I stayed for many years, just practicing the cosmology, African cosmology. Now that took me into a next level. And they deal with the Indus Kush, the Yoruba, and Kemet.
Okay.
Yeah, so they deal with those, and for me that blew my mind already, that they were kind of bringing all of those three structures together and just showing the cosmology of all of that. So I stayed with them for a few years, and then I think I went through a phase where it was enough study, now I need to practice.
Right. Okay.
What does all of this mean?
Yeah.
So I've never thrown away anything, because I think it's all within me, and it's all holds me, in terms of my spiritual practice and my culture. So ceremony in all of that, as you can imagine, has been continuous: rituals, ceremony, events. So it wasn't until my mother transcended into spirit in 2011 where I actually heard the word celebrant.
Right.
So that's when I realized the path I had been on.
Yes.
I realized that path. And so when I completed her ceremony, funeral ceremony, I realized that I had controlled much of it. I already had it in my mind, and we've had this conversation before, right?
Yeah.
Where loved one dies and you're like, I'm really not going through this kind of commonplace way of sending off or burying our elders or our loved ones. We want to do it in a different way, but we don't know how that is or what it looks like.
Or to what extent as well you can do it. Exactly.
So it was really testing the boundaries, pushing the boundaries, and just asking a lot of questions like, why do I? Is that necessary? Is there another way? You know, and talking to people. We were with her in the hospital until she took her final breath. Our family just took over the hospital. They had to give us a room, and they eventually realized we weren't going home. We were literally sleeping in chairs, on the floor, in the bed next to mum. It didn't matter. So eventually they gave us a room in the hospital to sleep in so that we could kind of do rotations and stay there. But even that was an experience because culturally we stay. Culturally, we don't leave the bedside, you know. We're with them all the time. So, okay, so if this is where she is, this is where we are then, you know. And it was a strange dynamic in the hospital. And I'm going off on a tangent at the moment, but it was a strange dynamic because on one level, the hospital loved the care and attention that we were giving our mother. And, you know, the doctors and nurses were really celebrating, and we used to have nurses that would come into our room for a break.
For the energy.
But on the other hand, they made no provision for us. I got endless parking tickets. I got or just huge parking bills. Like I said, we were literally sleeping on the floor of the room that they gave to mum after they took her off the ward because we just, we bedded down. You're not going to make provision for us. So it wasn't until we did all of that that they then said, oh, we better sort something out here. And I think those kinds of provisions, you know, there was just nothing in place because they're not used to people, you know, taking care of their own in that kind of environment. Just because of the health conditions of my mum, we couldn't take her home. We were paralysed from the head down and all of this kind of thing. So there was a lot of health conditions, but it was, you know, they said, 3 days. They gave her 3 days and we were in the hospital for nearly 2 weeks.
Because she knew that you were there. She had your energy, you know, she had your support. And so she was ready to go when she did.
Exactly. So the magic that happened around the bedside was phenomenal. You know, I always say my mum taught me the art of dying because she wasn't speaking. Like I said, she was paralysed from the head down. She wasn't moving. She could barely communicate with her eyes and facial expression. And yet there was magic happening around her bed. Family members that never speak for years have come at the same time, standing up, facing each other around mum. I'm like, okay. And I'm just sitting there like observing this synchronicity happening and looking at just how things were shifting. And this continued, you know, that whole shift. And I think through her transitioning, through the funeral and everything that's happened, I think my awareness of that synchronicity of life has been heightened. Definitely. Would you agree? Would you agree?
Really, it is such a beautiful and magical time. It is really an honor to be able to be by somebody's bedside as they're making that transition and to be able to facilitate that for a family. It's an awesome event to behold. And I often think that maybe we've got death misunderstood. We've got it wrong. We don't have the full picture of the gift that it can be for so many of us. So, I completely agree. And wow, to just have that experience and to be able to talk to somebody actually who knows it, who's felt it, who's been there, because it's not a subject that people often want to entertain. So how do you introduce your work to others? How is it received by others?
Well, that's an interesting one, because after Mum left in spirit and all of that business was done, I had a real urge to get a qualification, because I found out that the people who did this work were called celebrants.
Yeah.
You know, and the funeral parlour said to me, if you qualify, please come back, we will hire you. And I was like, oh, right, okay. So went off, did my research, qualified as a celebrant, because I thought it really brought home the realization that I've been doing this work for a long time.
Yeah.
And it brought forward this realization, if I've been doing it, then people want it, you know, there's a need for it. So to qualify then gives service. It means I can really give service, and I can give it in a professional way. So how is it received? Initially, I mean, I still, even now, people say, a selly what?
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
They think I'm saying celebrant, as I can't even say the word, the other word, celebrant. No. There's another word. What is it? When you abstain,
when you have what?
No, there's a word that it always gets mixed up with.
Celebrant.
Celibacy. Yeah, right. That's what people always think I'm saying.
Right.
Can you imagine?
And it makes no sense, does it? So it's like, yeah, foreign.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not saying I'm abstaining from sex. I'm saying I'm a celebrant.
Yes.
Right. So it's breaking down that word and what people are hearing and how they're, interpreting it. So that constantly needs explaining, which is why I'm glad to kind of have this conversation with you. So I use the term shamanic celebrant or traditional cultural celebrant in the work that I do, because in my training and in my qualification, I've got a diploma in funeral celebrancy. But that training is in an institution, an establishment, very good training. But I do find that, again, it's a lot like registrars, and the difference as well between a registrar and a celebrant, because there were quite a few registrars training with me. And I'm quite surprised by that. There was funeral directors there. There was elderly people who had their, retirement fund, and they just wanted to do something in retirement years. So I was the youngest person on my training. And so, but everybody, especially the funeral directors and the registrars, they were shocked by the level of training. They said, "Oh, I thought it was going to be easy." And I'm looking at them thinking, you're a funeral director and you're finding this a challenge. It's interesting, So I know that I've been trained to a very high standard, and for me, it's really important to bring that out to our community and to the wider world, to say there's an alternative. Because now we're in a society where, cultures, ways of life, spiritual practices, mix and blend, as we say, they mix and blend. So in that regard, aren't our ceremonies supposed to as well?
Yes, they've been quite staid, haven't they, in the way that they've been carried out in the past, and often they don't actually reflect the person who has passed away. Well,
this is the frustration, and many of us, there's too many stories about that. We're not, about that I hear it from my clients, my customers, personal experience, you know, for yourself as well. So that you go to a ceremony and you're wondering, oh, well, what happened? You know, there's just like an emptiness that is felt. And that emptiness for me is the fact that we're not bringing in our traditional rituals and practices.
Yeah.
It's all very formularized.
Yeah.
And what, you know, for me as well, there's a bit of a frustration because you don't go to church, but on the very important times of your life, your birth, your death, your marriage, you're going into church. So you don't really have a relationship.
Yeah.
So what is the need? So the need is because it's the done thing. It's a traditional thing. It's required by law. So when you talk to someone like ourselves and you realize, well, actually, there were ceremonies and that were done before church, before religion. It's the right thing to do. Well, ritual is what is the reason why we do these things. It's a ritual. And rituals have been something that's been kind of looked down on by religions all over the world.
Yeah, they
have.
have.
They all know rituals are bad.
Yeah.
Come and do our ritual. Our ritual is good.
Yeah.
You know, but people are not finding comfort in that now, and people are also being taught to pressured to choose. So a Muslim has married a Christian, you know, or a Pentecostal has married a Rasta, you know, or, you know, you've got all these cross-cultural beliefs. Yeah. Where do you go? Where do you go when something important happens? Where's the common ground? And this is what I think we provide as celebrants. You know, we provide that common ground where you can go and you can truly celebrate. You can say Rastafari, Assalamu alaikum. You know, you can say it all because, you know, in my world, a blessing's a blessing, you know?
Yes.
So, yeah.
You know, you've brought up the word shamanism, and you refer to yourself as a shaman. I always, whenever I heard the word before, I've always kind of associated it with Aborigines and Australians. Can you kind of, you know, give us a bit more insight into the shamanistic way?
Aborigines, yes, and First Americans, yes.
Yeah.
Bushmen, you know, all of that kind of vibe. Dream worlds, and yeah. So when you look up the word shaman, because I'm really into words, sound, and power, right? So when you look up the word, a shaman is somebody that takes you on a spiritual journey. Yeah. And for me, within my practice as coming through Rastafari and also just through my spiritual practice, I understand that the word man can apply. So shaman can apply to man or woman as well. It's got that vibe about it. So because in a lot of spiritual cultures, traditional cultures, the man and woman separation thing is not so important as it is. You don't have to say shay woman, shay man, you know, it applies, you know. So for me, the important thing was that a ceremony, any ceremony, takes you on a spiritual journey, you know, and that is the important thing. That's the potent thing. And what amazes me, and I'm sure for you too, is that no matter how many times you do it, it's different.
Yes. 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 Yeah. And it always never goes according to your plan. It just flows, doesn't it? You know, it comes out. And that goes back to what you were saying about it just being in you. It's just in you. All you have to do is show up and the work is done. Yeah.
So shamanic work, I think whether that's the word or not, you know, it's the energy of the work that we do. is taking people on a spiritual journey, and the understanding and the constant reminder for me is that I'm a guide. Do you know what I mean? I'm not the one that's saying I've got all the power and this is, this is, I am all this and that. No, I can show you the way, but you have to
go.
You have to, it is your journey, whether it's a birth, a marriage, or a death. This is your journey. It's something that you're creating, and I think that is so powerful because you have an idea about how you want to communicate, whether it's a final send off, to a loved one, that you're doing it in a way that gives you a good feeling in your heart, even though it's a bittersweet feeling. It gives you a good feeling in your heart that you've done that final act.
Yes.
And you've filled that final role. That's the biggest honor that you can give somebody, a loved one.
Yeah.
Is that you give them a good send off.
Absolutely.
No matter of the circumstance surrounding their death, we don't have control over that. Sometimes it's sudden, unjust. Sometimes, I give thanks when I do funeral ceremonies for elders, and it actually is a celebration of life. I do give thanks for that. And some of my pictures that I see at funerals, I'm actually smiling, and I used to feel really bad. Just, oh my God, I'm smiling, I'm shy. What are you doing? It's a funeral. But actually, I've had so much feedback from clients saying, Aama, you did the impossible. I really dreaded this day.
Yes.
I was not looking forward to it, and we ended up singing traditional songs and dancing, crying, laughing and hugging all at the same time, so I'm thinking, okay, so because it's not, this is what happens. This is what happens with grief.
This is how we do. Yeah. We celebrate the life, don't we?
Definitely.
I think that's the difference, we honor the life that's been lived. And what I've always loved about funerals is the fact that it brings everybody from far and wide, and we all know in our hearts this is very important to us, and I would say that as a people, it's probably one of the most important things that we do, and we come together and we honor that life, and it's an amazing thing to be a part of. You've talked about Sabonfu and Maladona, and the rites of passage. You've basically spoken a lot about rites of passage without us talking about rites of passage. But that's what's coming up for me, rites of passage. What are the other services that you provide? Do you even refer to them as services? Ceremonies, rituals?
How do I refer to them? That's difficult. English is not our first language, so it's there's services, there's ceremonies, there are offerings, there are retreats, there are events, there are gigs sometimes, there are presentations. It really depends on who's asking, what the need is, what other services I provide. As a celebrant, I've taken people on a journey. As a shaman, as a guide, I'm really into energy balancing and realignment. So rites of passage is really important for me. I do energy balancing and realignment, which is about taking people on a journey in terms of where they're at, whether it's a young person who's reached 16 or 18 or 21, whether it's an elder that's going through their menopause into their eldership and embracing that, I've been asked to do ceremonies for people who are doing extreme career changes, you know, and they're moving from one career into another, and they want to ensure that they're not carrying anything with them. House blessings. I've just recently been asked to do a building blessing for an organisation down by Grenfell, who are the changing direction. So they wanted to close the direction of this organisation, clear the energy, so that when they re-establish themselves, that they can do that on a clean slate. You know, so people come to me with their rituals, which is very exciting for me. I'll just get a call and say, you know, I'm not sure if this is possible, but can we? You know, tree ceremonies, nature ceremonies. I love to observe the solstice and the equinox, what the planet is doing. So sometimes those are private ceremonies that I just hold with myself or my family, or, you know, may do something in a group. Life is a rites of passage, you know, life is a rites of passage, and all those steps and stages. I mean, you yourself know with FactFlow, from, as you said, from when we met, you know, from that launch of saying, hey world, I'm here, this is FactFlow, you know, from that moment and now, I mean, if you want to talk about rites of passage, my gosh, you know, you could probably, that could be your next book, right? You know?
Yes, possibly. It's been a journey. It has.
Yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah.
You know, it's been a journey. So I think, but I did a vision quest, because I love going on retreats myself in my growing up years, and just taking myself off. And I did a vision quest retreat where you go off into nature for 3 days with nothing but water. And when we came back, the person who was guiding us said that in society now, we don't have our elders, or we don't have our village there to welcome us. So we need to welcome each other.
Right.
So we're going to be honorary elders. We're going to be the honorary village that welcomes each other. And this kind of ties in with Malidoma and Sobomfu, because I worked with Sobomfu in her ancestral village until her passing, literally. It was the same essence. You have to create your village and create that energy of working together and finding your way.
Yeah. Okay. This is so interesting, what you've just said about sort of going off into the wilderness for the 3 days. Would you say that I've got 2 questions that I want to ask. First of all, the journey that we're on, this work that we find ourselves doing, it's not as if it's scripted. It's not as if we can say, it's not even as if it's all encompassed in like a title, like accountant or florist, you know. This is an all-encompassing, vast spiritual energy, nature. It's so many levels. It's the spiritual, the social, the emotional, the mental, the ancestral, so many realms that you're working with here. Would you say then that the trips such as going off into the wilds, going off into forest areas, being with nature, are necessary in this modern day?
In this modern day, that's interesting. I'd have to say, what does modern mean? I mean, we can get into all kind of semantics about what is modern.
Technological.
Yeah, but even down to that, you know, I really challenge society's idea. I think there's we really overrate ourselves when we still don't know how to recreate the pyramids. Our mathematics is not good enough in this modern day to recreate the pyramids or overstand why Stonehenge stands for what it does. All those, what they call them, mysterious sites around the world, actually. We still don't understand that. We don't understand what's going on in the sea. And the mysteries, I think they're still discovering animals on the planet that they didn't know were there, fish in the, so modern. I think we kind of overrate ourselves and our intelligence.
Yeah.
And I think the most sacred people on the planet are ones that don't read or write. And are of the oral tradition, because they're really in touch with the earth and the planet. There's a story, many might know it, but there's a story about the Dogons in Africa that were always treated as very uncivilized and were not respected at all, because they didn't read or write. But they always used to talk about these star constellations in the sky. And it wasn't until, it's a longer story, but to cut it short, it wasn't until the West created telescopes powerful enough to see these stars that they realized, how did they know? How did these people, who don't read or write, know about Orion's belt in the sky? Now, this is a famous story, look it up. But that always struck me, how much do we know, us modern people? Yeah. How much do we know? And when you read Malidorma's story, he does talk about the fact that, I think he says it in his book, actually, once you learn to read or write, there is a spiritual aspect of your brain that just gets cut off, and you struggle to access it. Yeah. And that makes sense to me, because we're very logical thinkers, and the questioning, sometimes we see things and we're like, did I see that? That's our first thing. Yeah. Because of our modern brain, So I'm always kind of dubious of that, and overstanding where I am in the West, in my privilege of being born here and kept in a certain amount of ignorance about the earth, So there is a push at the moment in terms of sustainability about, reconnecting with the earth. Can you believe? So our modern world, our civilized world, actually disconnects us from the earth in so many ways. So, but the earth has a lot to tell us, and it is a living, breathing being that sustains us.
Yes.
So earth energy has always been at the root, and that's why even when I'm talking about roots, I'm talking about, the growth, I'm talking about, all of those things are really about nature and our connection with it. There's nothing more healing, than lying down on the grass. I mean, that's why we do it. It's nothing more healing than going to the sea, and even if you put your foot in the seawater or something, it's nothing more healing than feeling the sun. You feel better when the sun is shining, when the wind blows through you. So nature just gets overlooked. Yeah. Such a degree that it makes me weep at times, and the essence is we don't know the star gateways that we came in on. We came from creation, nature, if you like, creation. We came from it. We don't know where, we can't remember all of it, some of it.
Some of it's come back.
Right?
Yeah.
And then when we die, where we go? Our flesh will go back into the earth. That's what I would like.
Yeah.
To do, go to the earth.
Yeah.
And rejoin again with nature. So for me, nature is the foundation. Earth creation is the foundation, of everything. And if you've got any questions, go there. you know, go to the roots, go to the nature, go just ground. We talk about grounding yourself. We talk about energy and alignment, you know, and all those elements of fire, air, water, you know, that we have around us, that we need around us, but it's also what we are. We are those elements as well. So if we deny nature and we deny creation, then we're denying ourselves. And the more we connect with nature and creation is the better we connect with ourselves. I might be talking a load of tosh, but that's my opinion.
If you are, then I'm on the same tosh page as you, and I appreciate you, and I love you even more for this conversation. Thank you. You know, you've just said something again. You've said that, you know, if you want any answers, go to nature. And I've always said nature always wins. It always wins. It is supreme. It is all that is, you know, nature always wins. But if I have any questions and I am not able to get in touch with my ancestors, you know, who probably, well, mine I know done this work, you know, how can we contact you? How do we find our sister Aama Sade? Where do we get hold of you so that we can learn more and grow together, and you know, the community, the raising, the oneness? How do we find you so that we can create this?
Oh, bliss. Thank you so much. It is so lovely. So I have a website, Tree Circle Ceremonies, and it literally is treecircleceremonies.co.uk. And you'll find all my details on there. And I'm also I'm connected with you, Factfo. Go on Factfo's website as well. You'll find my details there. I have Insta, Tree Circle, LinkedIn, Aama Sade. So I think I'm on there as Aama Sade, and Facebook, Tree Circle. So yeah, tap me into social media. I'm not completely active on social media, so you can have a look and see what I do. But if you want to contact me, then just log into my website, send an email, call me. You know, happy for you to just pick up the phone. Don't be shy. And you know, I do all kinds of ceremonies. My strap line, if you like, is for all the ceremonies of life. You know, because I really think, you know, child ceremonies, we need our children to grow in their knowingness, you know, and really bring out the essence of them. As adults, we need to continually look after our spiritual health and well-being, you know. So whether it's the union, I call weddings union of marriage ceremonies. It's a unification. You know, it's a union coming together. And, you know, so if there's anything to do with unions and end of life, whether that's palliative care, whether that's, you know, any of the things that go along with end of life. So, Tree Circle Ceremonies is probably the best.
I like that.
Contact with me, or just amaceremonies@gmail.com. One word. amaceremonies@gmail.com.
Okay. And the tree, nature, the circle. This is a circle of life, you know. And I'm reminded of when Malidoma spoke about the ceremony that they have that sort of explains the life of the child before the child comes to earth. You know, the anticipating is all a circle, a beautiful circle. The thing is to be honored, as well as the transition, you know, into what we have been led to believe is death. And I'm just really honored to be able to share this platform with you. who is doing this work, and our sisters who are part of the steering committee on FACFO who are doing this work. Because, you know, my whole life, I've wondered where you girls are. Like, you know, where are those people that are doing those things, you know? And we're coming together and we don't have to hide anymore. And I say that in lifetimes I've been murdered and whatever, you know, for being who I am, you know, for doing this work, for working authentically. Past lives.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that trauma still sits. I'm glad you brought that up, because the trauma of past life events, you know, because people say, oh, you know, slavery happened ages ago, it doesn't affect us now. It does. You know, those past life traumas live in our DNA, you know, and they will, you know, they need working out, you know. And there's lots of traditional cultures around the world that acknowledge, you know, the trauma or how things fit in the DNA over a period of years. I think it's up to like 7 years, 7 generations, sorry, not years. So yeah, those past traumas, and for those of us like yourself, particularly, you talked about that you're conscious, you're fully conscious and aware of what those traumas were. And here you are, you know, really just moving and shaking and creating your best life, you know, whereas there's a lot of us out there who are not fully aware and are just, you know, kind of confused and looking a direction. And you know, so I think, yeah, I'm so happy to come together with you, Debbie, Lorna, Yaya, all of those in FACFO who have really been living this, you know, work, you know, been living it and moving it forward. Kasheni, yeah, big up to all of the sisters.
We've got a great bunch of us that are working, and we're growing as well.
Yes.
Honoured, just honoured. So I want to say thank you so much for taking this time to speak to me. I know you're very busy, so thank you. Again, you can find Aama's details at www.facfo.org. That's F for Federation, A for African, C for Caribbean, F for Funeral, and O for Operatives. Facfo.org. We are the Federation of African and Caribbean Funeral Operatives. And there is so much more to come from us. So thank you for joining us. Also, Aama is Tree Circle Ceremonies. You can find her on Instagram, website, put her into Google, she'll come up. Contact her. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks. It's been a blissful morning, and much love to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
One love.
One love.